Hello, so these first two examples are going to review how to factor out the greatest common factor. Okay, so if you look at this first expression right here, right, you want to look at all three terms and say, is there some number that divides evenly into all three of them? And if there is, you want to find the biggest number that divides evenly into all three of them. Now, the biggest number that divides evenly into 5, 25, and 15 is 5. So what we do is we bring down a 5, and then we're going to open a parenthesis. Okay, we're going to open a big parenthesis because what we're going to do is once we divide each of these terms by 5, we're just going to write what we're left with within the parentheses. So 5 divided by 5 is 1. So that leaves us with a 1. And see how there's an x squared on this first term? We want to bring that down. So it leaves us with 1x squared. Now, I'm going to just write x squared because doesn't that mean the same thing as 1x squared? Okay, then I'm going to take this minus sign right here and I'm just going to bring it down. And then we could say, well, 25 divided by 5 is 5. So I'm going to bring down a 5. And then see this x that's hanging out here? We have to bring that down as well because we didn't take it out. If we didn't take it out, we have to leave it within the parentheses. And then I'm going to bring this plus sign down. And 15 divided by 5 is 3. So I'm going to put a 3 in here. And this, my friends, is factored. Okay, this is what happens when we pull out the greatest common factor of 5 from this expression. This right here is what we're left with. And if you ever wanted to check, you could just take this 5 and distribute it back in. 5 times x squared is 5x squared. 5 times 5x is 25x. And 5 times 3 is 15, so it checks out. Okay, now if we look at this next example, if you look at the numbers, you'll see the biggest number that divides evenly into all of them is 2. So I'm going to pull out a 2. Now, in addition to pulling out a number, look at this. This term, and this term all contain x's. And if, all the terms have a variable in common, we want to pull it out. Now, this term, x to the third, means x times x times x. Okay, we have 3 x's being multiplied together. Whereas this next term, x squared, means x times x. We have 2 x's being multiplied together. Whereas this last term has just a single x right here, okay? It's just, put it over here, it's just an x. So you want to look at all 3 terms. And you want to say, well, first of all, which one has the least amount of x's? And that's how many we want to pull out. Well, this one has 3, which you could see from the exponent. You don't have to write this out. This one has 2, which we could see from the exponent. And this one has just 1. So we're going to pull out just 1 x. That's part of our GCF. Okay, that x is part of our greatest common factor. So then we do the same thing. We open up a big parenthesis, and we're going to write in the parentheses what we're left with after we pull a 2x out of each of these 3 terms. Okay, so 2 divided by 2 is 1. Again, if you want to put the 1 there, you can, but you don't have to as long as you have a variable left right here. Now, x to the third divided by x. What that means is if we had 3 x's being multiplied together and we took one of them out, don't we still have 2 x's being multiplied together? Okay, 2 x's being multiplied together is x squared. That's what we're going to put here. Because you could either write 1x squared or just x squared. It means the same thing. Okay, so again, with that term, 2 divided by 2 is 1. If you want to put the 1 there, you can. And then we had 3 x's, but we took one of them out, so it leaves us with 2 x's being multiplied together, which we write as x squared. Okay, next term, we bring down the plus sign. 14 divided by 2 is 7. And then we had 2 x's being multiplied together, right? That's what x squared means. But we took one of them out. So doesn't that just leave us with 1 more x that we have to attach to this term here? Okay, so again, we had 2 of them. We took 1 out, so we still had 1 to put in here. All right, now let's take this minus sign and bring it down. And then 10 divided by 2 is 5. And although we did have an x, we took it out, so we don't have any more x's to put within the parentheses, so we leave that as just a 5. and this right here is factored. All right, so here we're going to review factoring trinomials. Tri means 3, so a trinomial is an expression with 3 terms. Now, if we take a look at this first one right here, as long as the number in front of the first term is a 1, see how there's 1x squared? What we do is we set up 2 sets of parentheses, and we take the square root of this first term, right? So the square root of x squared would be x, because x times x gives us x squared. And we're going to put that in the first spot in each parenthesis. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come up with 2 numbers that add to this middle term, so add to 2, and multiply to this last term, so multiply to negative 24. Okay, so it may take a little bit of trial and error, but 2 numbers that multiply to negative 24 and add to positive 2 are going to be positive 6 and negative 4. Okay, so that is our answer. That is factored. Now, if you take a look at the next one over here, what you may notice is that all of these terms are divisible by 2. Okay, if you can pull out a greatest common factor, if there's something that divides evenly into all 3 terms, you want to do that before you start. All right, so this is what we do with the greatest common factor. So our greatest common factor is a 2. And then we're going to just put 1 big parenthesis, and in that parenthesis, we're going to write what we're left with when you factor a 2 out of each of these terms. And when you factor out a 2, you're actually just dividing them by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. So this gives us 1x squared, which we could just write as x squared. And then negative 20x divided by 2 would be negative 10x. So I'm going to write minus 10x. And then positive 32 divided by positive 2 would be positive 16. Okay, now, if we look in here, this trinomial, we're going to factor the same way we did over here. Okay, as long as the number in front of your first term is a 1, what we do is we set up 2 sets of parentheses, and you want to remember to bring down this greatest common factor you pulled out, right? That's part of your expression. And then within the parentheses, you're going to take the square root of this first term, so the square root of x squared is x, because x times x gives us x squared. And then you just want to come up with 2 numbers that add to negative 10 and multiply to positive 16. All right, so first of all, if they multiply to a positive, we know they have to have the same sign. So it's either going to be plus, plus, or minus, minus. But look at this. If they add to a negative, doesn't that tell us they both have to be negatives? So I'm going to write minus, minus. And then the 2 numbers that multiply to 16 and add to negative 10 would be negative 8 and negative 2. Okay, so there we have it.